Hello everyone, welcome to our second presentation in the 2021 Watershed Steward Series. This presentation is with Mikal Deese, a wild bird rehabilitator from On a Wing and a Prayer in Corrales, New Mexico. This presentation was held on Zoom. As you can see in this picture, her speaking to the participants. I hope you enjoy this recording. Don't miss out on the screeching of the barn owl, which is really cool to hear. And if you would like more information, please go to ciudad.swcd.org. Thank you. Enjoy.
I remember this. There are actually 15 different species of owls that have been found in New Mexico. So there's a lot more around than we're aware of. I have a western screech owl, and he got up this morning and said, "I can't do it. I simply can't do it. It's just too much." So I left him home. Some other time he'll be back on the job. This guy's a burrowing owl. Live in arroyos, cliff sides. They'll live in open places with prairie dogs. And they and the prairie dogs manage to get along just fine. Nobody eats each other. They're primarily bug eaters. They will eat lizards and mice and other little critters, but they eat lots of bugs. They even have been seen to drag, if they're out on the open prairie, to drag a cow pie or a buffalo chip over beside their burrow, and the beetles grow underneath that. And then when they want something, they go to the larder, flip over the cow patty, and there's a new crop of beetles to eat. Since they eat bugs, they're very migratory. We don't have enough bugs to support them in the winter. So they will go to Mexico. And there's still a lot of research going on. We don't really know quite where they go. We know where some of them go. But the only way to do that is to get a bird that's here and tag it and then find it in Mexico. And they're sort of little and dirt colored. You notice he's dirt colored. That's his camouflage. He looks a lot like dirt. He's used to being in grasslands, so he has kind of long, bare legs. I don't know that the light's good enough to see that.
You can go closer.
Maybe I can, yes, we'll try that. Oh, no, we're backlit is the problem. But there we go, guys.
Yeah.
Please ask any questions that you want. We have few enough people. I would like to make this a conversation rather than just a speech. So,
Can you tell the story? So this guy, who brought him into you?
he was actually found at Coronado, the historic site.
Okay.
Caught on their barbed wire fence,
Okay.
which they've now realized they don't need a barbed wire fence there, so they've removed it. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their burrows can be seen. Like, where could you see a burrow in an arroyo?
Well, it's going to be up on the side someplace. They're not really good at digging burrows. Can model a little, but they look for somebody else's place.
Okay.
But they might take something that a swallow has done or a squirrel, a ground squirrel, and renovate that a little bit.
Okay.
So they live there.
Are there citizen science projects that work with these owls? Who are they and what work do they do?
I don't know of any going on here currently. It's very often through universities where some grad student will need to discover something and recruit people to find out, follow these, look at them. They're now doing little tags. They're now geolocator tags that are small enough they can put on a bird that's even this tiny and solar powered.
Wow.
So that as they're out of their burrow, it charges this thing. It's not big enough to give them a daily update, but they can periodically download the whole and then find out where they've gone, what they're doing.
So we've done a project with watershed stewards.
Yes.
Doing
You're doing an artificial burrow.
yes,
for burrowing owls. Because we've had a plague on prairie dogs, because ranchers don't want them around, there are fewer prairie dogs, and that's what they historically moved into prairie dog towns.
So without the prairie dogs,
they're finding fewer places. I know there's a project on the Air Force Base. There are a bunch of birds out there, and they're trying to keep up with the census and find out, how many there are the numbers dropping. The other thing they run up against is we kill so many insects that we've actually decreased the insect mass that's available to eat. And these guys can get poisoned from pesticides that we're spraying around. The world doesn't belong just to us. I'm sure the people who agree with that, you're interested in the natural world, obviously, to be here. Yeah.
And another question is, who are their predators?
Who are the predators? Dogs in arroyos. I know there are people that go out into the West Mesa and look for something to shoot because it's and they're little, and there's so much we actually don't know yet about them.
I imagine coyotes would go for them.
They would, but they're not so much.
There's not a lot of meat.
There's not much to it. This guy weighs about a quarter of a pound. So if thinking weight-wise, think about, a quarter cup of water.
Wow.
That's it. Of course, birds are very light for their size. It makes it a lot easier to fly. Yeah, you're doing beautifully now. I was really concerned about how this was going to go. Actually, says they're not poor flyers because they migrate to Mexico. They're not strong flyers. They don't hunt on the wing that much, but they do manage to migrate. And southern Mexico, there have been some of our owls found tracked down to there, but there's a lot more research that needs to be done. Oh, they're absolutely a native species. Yes, very much. And federally protected because of that. And do they prefer desert terrain? Right, they're not in the bosque, they're dry land, grassland, all through the center of the country. There's a separate population in Florida. And ornithologists are still trying to argue amongst themselves if the species is identical to the ones we have here or not. And that's still up for debate. More doctoral papers will come on that. Yeah. They make a whole bunch of different little noises. There are some people who have written that they communicate, and they communicate with prairie dogs to look at predators.
Raptor's definition.
But
Here's the definition of raptor: a bird of prey, e.g., an eagle, hawk, falcon, or owl.
Yep, I don't know where that came from, but raptors are things that grab their food with their feet. So they have talons and strong toes. They use their feet to make their living. Although they also put turkey vultures as raptors, except sometimes they're not. The definition of raptor comes and goes. But these are definitely little raptors. They often have 6 or 8 babies. The young ones have different coloring, different plumage. So if you see pictures, you can tell the babies. This is the adult plumage. Males and females are identical in their plumage, and really about the same size. This one I'm calling a male because it hasn't laid an egg yet, but that's the only thing that I have to go on. You can do a DNA test, but that costs money, and all of my funds go into mice, rats, and other things for the raptors. I currently have 42 birds at home. Saw a lot of burrowing owls at the zoo. I don't know if that is some kind of a project, a rehabilitation project. It's probably just more an education thing. There may be some unreleasable owls in that population, so that gives them a good place to live.
Michael, do you want to talk about how you got into bird rehabilitation?
How did I get into bird rehabilitation? This morning I was wondering. This has taken over. It's not a career move. Let me tell you that. I had a totally successful career doing completely unrelated things. Did them very well. Got paid. Just like a normal person. And somehow, yes, I am a gemologist, and I was a studio goldsmith for 30 years. But then I was trying to take a class, and okay, the whole story. I was finally put on a drug which made my hands shake. I had a medical issue and my hands shake, and that's kind of difficult when you're a goldsmith. I kept dropping things. So I thought, okay, I'll retool. I'll do accounting for artists. The next class I needed was out of sequence. I wasn't being offered that semester. This is it's 20 years ago now. But they were doing ornithology, and I thought, well, that's cool. I've always just wanted to know a little more about birds. And it's been a downhill slide from there. I started volunteering with Wildlife Rescue. I was actually with them for about 10 years. Finally, it was time to become independent, so I now have my own state and federal permits for rehabilitation and another state and federal permits for education birds. These birds all still belong to the federal government, or all of us. I have permits to caretake them because it's illegal for anybody without those permits to keep any of our native wild birds in captivity. So this permits me to do that as long as you do education, which you're doing now. Good bird. I was worried. Is it like handling owls? Little owls, it's not bad. Big owls, you got to work up to. Yeah. Maybe we need a bigger owl now. I like to put you away while you're behaving well. Kind of, you don't want to put a bird away when it's behaving really badly, because then that encourages it to behave badly so that you'll put them away. That's not good. Yes, you're doing very well. I'm impressed. Yesterday wasn't so promising. Yeah, it's okay. Here, let me put you back in your box. Almost. Okay. Did your job. Really missed being able to show them to people. I love to do the rehabilitation. There's nothing that feels so good as releasing a bird, watching him fly away when you know it would have died if you hadn't been there. That has done for my heart what nothing else ever has. I may be making up for karma that I incurred earlier in lifetime, but I'm good now. But I love the rehab. That's what I'm starting to say. But that's never going to make a difference in the population. The only thing that will is education. If our kids don't care, if they don't know about the creatures that are out there, if they don't respect them, if they're not interested in them, there won't be any. We've lost a third of our bird population in the last 50 years. Some populations are down, 90%. If we don't turn our lives around and learn to live with our neighbors, they belong here just as much as we do. Anyway.
Well, are they good kind of bug control too? I mean, if they're like our natural.
They're natural. Everything is worked out before we got here, and everything we do tends to mess up balances one way or another.
Yeah. So we need them.
We need them.
Yeah.
Yes. And if we make the earth unlivable for the other creatures, it's not going to be that much longer. It's unlivable for us.
Right.
But I didn't bring my soapbox.
Okay.
I could go on.
Can owls catch a bat?
Yes, yes, grab them right out of the air. Yeah, absolutely. And eat on the wing even, sometimes. This one may make noise, just warning you. Well, then again, he may not. We're not quite sure. Hey. Okay. Yeah. Come here. Come here. Oh, I know. Wow. And that is a barn owl saying, I didn't sign up for this. I understand, yeah. When I first got him, he was, oh, there you go. He would do this out of fear. Now I think he's just telling me, I told you I'm tired of this. I was afraid. Bet you didn't know that's what an owl sounds like. So beautiful. Here. This one, I would go back and forth on naming them because on the one hand, they very much are individuals. On the other hand, they have different personalities. On the other hand, he's never going to be a pet. And I never want kids to confuse, some of the popular things that have made, oh, I want to have an owl. No, you don't. Trust me on this. It is not a pet. This is a barn owl. They were here before barns were. But when people started building structures and then storing grain in them, which attracted mice, barn owls went, yo, I think I'll be a barn owl. They are incredible pest controls. A family of barn owls can go through 10,000 mice a year without being paid, without putting any toxins out for anything else. They're a perfect rodent control. There you go. This one got hit by a car. He was hunting down along the side of the road where the grass is shorter. And of course, nothing in their evolution has prepared them for this. Yeah, we've got a drop cloth. Good bird. Yeah. Nothing has prepared them for cars that come along on the highways and smush them. It shattered the... Yes, I understand. Yeah. Is there more about that? You're okay for a minute? Yeah. They're particularly mousers. They go after small furry creatures. They're found in one form or another all around the world. You would recognize the face, the general outline. They might be slightly larger or smaller in different places, slightly different colors. But they're found worldwide except for the Arctic regions. They don't go there. People here in New Mexico will often tell me, I saw a snowy owl on Highway 14 as I was driving through. They go, no, you didn't. But it was huge and it was white. I understand. To date, there has never been a snowy owl sighting verified in New Mexico. They sometimes erupt from their Arctic lands that come down in the winter. A couple of years ago, one got to Dallas, which surprised everybody. A couple of years ago, there was a snowy owl only 30 miles over the line into Colorado. And all the birder people that I know lined up along the border trying to be the first person to see a snowy owl in New Mexico, but it hasn't happened yet. What they've seen is the underside of a barn owl. Do you want to spread your wings? Or is that asking too much? No? Okay, we got it. Yeah, my turn. They hunt very much with their ears. This is the only species that can hunt in total darkness, completely with their ears. Oh, people have tested that to see. Yes. They can be in a dark barn and hear a little mouse over there down under the straw, fly directly to it, reach out and grab him and get their dinner. Do you want to show off your legs? There. Somebody was asking earlier about, do owls really have long legs? Yes. Barn owls are also the reason we have haunted house stories. If there's an old house and it's got a broken window, maybe the barn owls have moved in, but nobody's noticed that yet. So you go in there with your buds and you've heard that it's haunted, but you're not quite sure. The first thing you might feel is a breeze where there shouldn't be any. You're indoors, and yet there's air moving. They fly absolutely silently, no sound at all. Then you might look down the hallway and see sort of this white apparition going past, crossing it. And you think, what was that? And then the scream starts. And that's when you bail out and, absolutely it's haunted, everybody, there's demons in there. Farmers would leave a door up top of the barn so that the barn owls could come and go, a special little window up there, because this is the rodent control.
Alex had some questions.
Okay.
Difficult to care for or not too bad? And I heard their wings are stiff when hit in the face. Do you have experience?
I wouldn't worry about the wings, it's the talons.
Yeah.
The talons, that's what they catch their food with. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. Here, you want to turn around and show your backside while you've got your wing out? Gorgeous colors. I don't know anything else that has the tans and the grays that does that. No, he's lives in his enclosure. Think of it like a large bedroom outside, because they live outside here. He has a box that he likes to hide in during the day, so he spends his time in there. He gets a half of a large rat or 3 mice a day delivered in the evening, because they're pretty much nocturnal. You see, clean up the poop, clean water, and that's about it. I'm not asking him to do any tricks. The only thing I train these birds to do, hopefully, is to sit on my glove and sit there so that I can show them to people. They're very much wild and will remain wild ever. They're glad to see me when I've got the mouse, but then leave the mouse and go away, please. I can love owls, but it's a one-sided relationship. Let's face it.
Do they build nests?
No, not much.
Yeah.
Most owls have no idea how to build nests. Let's come back to that. I've got a third owl that I'll bring out, and we'll talk about that. These are the numbers of barn owls in New Mexico have dropped considerably. It's now, you're lucky to see one. I know they're around. I know they're nesting in Corrales, but there's just not that many anymore. So very special, entirely beneficial. This guy's not going to go after any of your animals or pets. It likes mice. That's what it does. It's like mice. Okay, just a minute here. You did really well. I'm impressed.
While you're fiddling, Alex asked, why can't they digest all their prey like other birds?
You're right. Their owls are known for casting pellets. which is the bones and fur or feathers of something that they've eaten. This actually lots and lots of birds throw pellets, but they're better at digesting, as you say. The stomach acids in hawks will eat up the bones better, reclaim that calcium. And for some reason, it just doesn't do that the same in owls. So at some time in your schooling, you may have come across somebody who gave you owl pellets to take apart, and you could see all the little bones. I have lots.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just bought some. I should have called you.
You should have called me. Yeah. My owl pellets are kind of boring because I know what I fed them.
Yeah.
Which, the interesting part is when you can find wild owl pellets and take those apart, and then you can find out what mammals are around that they've eaten. But
Very cool.
for your first owl pellet, a captive one will do just fine.
Yeah.
Okay, now this owl has been behaving well. Probably shouldn't have said that. Here.
Hey there. Yeah.
Kill the glove. This is Alexander the Great horned owl. By far our most common big owl. There you go. Yeah. Alexander caught West Nile virus, and it turned into encephalitis, went to his brain, as it can do with humans. And he's a little slow. He's not quite right in the head. His reactions are really slow. On the other hand, it makes an excellent education bird. This is the bird I could reliably take into a kindergarten room, and he'd just sit there, and all the little guys are squealing and putting hands up. I can do that, not a problem. Tell me more questions.
The two questions around poisoning. Do you still see deliberate poisonings, and is reckless rodent pest control one of the main causes reducing owl populations?
Yes, I have found a number of owls in Corrales where I live that have been poisoned by secondary rodenticide poisonings. Those are anticoagulants. So what they do is deplete the vitamin K in your blood. Once the vitamin K is gone, then you bleed out. Your blood can't clot. So when a mouse eats that, they're feeling fine for several days. They get up and run around and go. Then they start to maybe stagger around, get to be the rodent that gets caught because they're not so fast. And then the bird gets the poison that was in. Some studies have been done where they're looking at all the raptors that come into a rehabilitation center and discover that something like 80% of our raptors show signs of poisons in their bodies.
Wow.
And it's cumulative. It may not be enough to kill you now, but maybe when you get the next one, you die. It's a huge issue. It's really silly of us to think that we could go and spread poisons around, that the poisons are going to go just what we want to get rid of, what we find inconvenient, and not affect anything else. That's simply not the way the world works. So this is a great horned owl named for his feathers that stick up here. Technically, they're called plumicorns. I just really like the word.
We do.
It's hard to fit it into conversation, but eventually you get a chance to. Those are not ears, they're just feathered tufts. Their ears are on the side, right underneath this dark line, right about in there, right between the mouth and the beak. Everything about the facial disc points sound to their ears, so they're excellent at hearing things. Again, they listen for their prey. They have special feathers. All the nocturnal owls have special feathers so that they they fly silently. There's two theories on why they do this. One is so they can sneak up on things. It's no good to find a little mouse over there and you're after him when you go whoop, 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 and he goes and hides. The other theory is that they hunt so much with their ears that they don't want the sound of their own flying would make it more difficult to find the prey. And there are ornithologists on both sides of this who are arguing it out. They have extraordinary talons when they speed. The glove is double layer, triple layer right there. It protects me from the sharpness. But if this bird starts to feel like he's falling, he'll grab hold and squeeze, and right through all that glove, I can feel the pressure. It's like a very strong man's hand with fish hooks on the tips of the fingers. And if you pull away, he knows you're not dead yet, so they'll squeeze harder. Let's see. Yes, oh, yeah, Alexander was saying he found a great horned owl feather. Yes, the leading edge of the feathers over here, excuse me, is very fuzzy, it's very fringed, very soft, so that doesn't go through the air. But actually, so it doesn't make sound as it goes through the air. But actually, all of these feathers are covered with a fur. It looks like velvet. If you find one, stick it under a magnifying glass, and you can see there's little hairs all over it. Whereas a hawk feather will be smooth, a shiny even surface, very plain like that. You're leaning. Do you want to, is that better? Yeah. When I'm walking with him, he likes to lean on me. Our trust has gotten to that point. Yeah, you're beautiful. They will eat your cat if you're the type of pet parent who lets your cat wander around and kill songbirds. The great horned owls have now learned that that's another source of food. They will eat that. So it's better for everybody if your cat stays indoors. As a rehabilitator, I feel pretty strongly about that. It also protects your cat. Great horned owls have a very wide range where they live. They'll eat most anything. There are great horned owls that live in swamps and catch frogs. I've even seen some that go after fish. They can live in high elevations where they have different prey. Occasionally you'll find a great horned owl that's particularly fond of skunk. And they actually go and hunt down skunks. Eat all kinds of rabbits, squirrels, small mammals. I once had somebody ask, well, why didn't I feed them rodent chow instead of all those mice? And there is no such thing. That she was thinking, well, you could make it out of soy or something and do vegetarian. No, these are carnivores. They must eat meat, and they're pretty much the top of the predator chain amongst our wild small things. The babies will get preyed on by some other big birds in the nest, but once the baby is out of the nest, nobody's dumb enough to wrestle with a great horned owl. It's going to end badly and you're going to lose. So they really don't have predators that way. This is called a gular flutter. It means he's a little bit hot or a little bit nervous. Can you turn around a little more? Like that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So essentially it's the same as a dog panting. You want to turn around? Okay, let's see. Let's see your backside then.
You go up a little higher.
Oh, yes. Yes. Keep track there. And it'd be nice if you turn around a little more, maybe. And sit up straight. That's a bit better. Okay. By far, it's our most common big owl. This western screech owl is our most common little owl, and they're only about that size. There's a lot more around that you don't see. Yeah.
Hard to shoulder to hold heavy birds up high. How much does he weigh?
Oh, just over 2 pounds.
Well,
So he's a big bird. My left arm is out of practice, having been a year off. Normally from carrying these birds around and showing them a lot, I've got a left arm that just won't quit.
Ooh,
There. This bird also acts as a foster parent to orphaned great horned owl babies. Oh, we were going to talk about nests more. Great horned owls don't build nests. Most owls don't really know about nests. Some are burrowing, or cavity owls, like the little screech owls that like a cavity. These guys start to mate before anybody else is around, and they find an old nest, preferably a big hawk nest, maybe a raven nest, and they just move in while the inhabitants aren't even thinking about nesting yet. Then the original red-tailed hawk, for instance, comes back and wants to redo his nest, and there's already great horned owls living there. But around here, there aren't enough big nests for all of our great horned owls, and they keep trying to nest in Cooper's hawk's nests. I'm sure some of you have met Cooper's hawk. It's a fairly small hawk with a long stripy tail. They go after birds, so if you have a bird feeder, a Cooper's hawk will adopt you and come around once a day and grab a little songbird. So they keep trying to nest in Cooper's hawk's nests that are often very high in cottonwoods and just not big enough, and the babies will fall out. So this guy will be a foster dad. He can take those babies and he raises them so that they know that they're owls, not people. He's very good. Last year we had 5 baby great horned owls that were all released. Which brings up, we're into baby season. If you find a baby, some little songbird on the ground underneath the nest, maybe you had a nest on your porch and you've been watching them all this time, and one day you look out and the baby's on the ground. The best thing you can do for that baby is to go over, pick him up, and put him back. Anytime you can return a chick to his original parents, that's best for the chick and everybody else. There's old wives' tales that say if you touch a baby, the parents will reject it. That is simply not true. Over and over again, we know that's not true. I think it was somebody thought it up as a way to keep kids from just picking up babies and carrying them around. So that's the best thing you can do. At one point, the babies become fledglings. They've hopped out of the nest. They're learning to fly, but they're probably not very good at it yet. If you put it back in the nest, it's just going to hop out again. It's got its feathers. Those you want to keep an eye on. The parents will know where they are and keep feeding them and watch them until the babies can fly better. And then the babies are supposed to follow them to food sources and learn all that stuff. However, sometimes you can't find the nest. The baby's in the middle of the sidewalk and there's no trees around. You have no idea where it came from. Get it to a wildlife rehabilitator. This is not a do-it-yourself project. The diets depend on what species it is. You need a rehabilitator to recognize what that baby is, what it needs to eat, the different stages of raising it. So that's when you can call me or another rehabilitator. If you're really interested, you can always volunteer. I don't know any rehabilitator that has too many volunteers. Last year, because Wildlife Rescue, the large local organization here, was closed down. At first, they couldn't get into the park. The park was completely closed where their headquarters are. Their volunteers scattered. It was just a mess. I ended up with twice as many birds in 2020 as I had in 2019. So that's how I spent the pandemic. Really hoping not to repeat that exact thing again. I've started getting some volunteers back who are a couple that are older, not older, that are old volunteers. No, that didn't come out right either. The experience, that's the word I'm looking for. And I'm taking on some new people. teaching them about it as we go. So that helps a great deal. So, if you want to get involved, find yourself a rehabilitator. It doesn't have to take over your life, although I'm a personal example that it can. Last year, I had 355 intakes, separate birds, of 61 different species. And that's what I find really interesting, is having all these different species. You get a new species, you've got to find out about it. You've got to find, what it eats and the different stages of its life, and if it migrates, when it migrates, so that's all into consideration.
We have a couple more questions.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But I was going to ask, what's your release rate?
Okay. If I take the birds that die within the first 24 hours or are so injured that I can tell right away they're never going to be releasable, this is never going to heal, those are euthanized on admission. If I take those off, I'm running around, last year was 73%.
Wow.
Are released of the rest of them.
That's awesome.
In the wintertime, you tend to get birds that are more debilitated. They're adults, they've been injured, they've been hit by a car, or they're really ill before somebody notices or is able to catch them. So the release rate goes down. But if I get a healthy baby, I'm pretty assured now that I can release that baby. If it's been laying on the sidewalk for a day and it's completely dehydrated, or it got cold overnight, or it got caught by a cat, that's much more difficult. I've actually raised quite a number of birds right from the egg. I will attempt to incubate the eggs and then raise the babies. So it becomes all consuming.
Yeah.
The littlest babies need to be fed every 15 minutes from dawn until dark. And then they go to sleep overnight. That's the great thing about doing birds instead of mammals, is there's no feeding during the night. The parents can't forage. So these tiny little babies, weigh a gram, go to sleep and sleep until the first thing the sun comes up, and then they're starving. You've got to keep feeding them all day long. Lots of our songbirds are in the nest. They hatch out, they're in the nest between 2 and 3 weeks, and then they're flying. So it's amazing to watch the transformation. You can see them grow every single day. I'm rambling.
So here's some questions.
Yes.
What is the wingspan of the great horned owl?
He's a good 4 feet, anyway. And anything that's out live, not being held or in captivity, looks twice as big. So you may think, I've seen one that was 6 feet. Well, actually not. Our brains add that up.
Mm-hmm.
It's still big.
Shall I?
Yeah.
What type of trees do the great horned owls prefer? And maybe that question is really asking, where can I see them?
There's lots more than you're really aware of. I know there are some nests in the bosque that people watch, but they're also in the parks. They're in your backyard. If you have an old nest up high, they may be taken over by that. These are not cavity nesters, so you really can't put up a box for them.
It sounds like there's a nest with babies. I think Alex was mentioning.
SRMC, what hospital? I don't know SRMC.
But it says the horned owl babies, 3 on lateral ditch, are becoming quite the local celebrities.
Yes. Yes, some of the nests are known and people watch them all the time. And the owls have gotten used to that, so they're not so spooky as an owl that has never met humans before.
Do they migrate or tend to stay local?
It depends on the species. The burrowing owls eat lots of bugs. They migrate. There's a tiny little one, a flammulated owl, which live at high altitudes, eat bugs, and for the longest time, nobody could figure out what they did in the wintertime. There were people who thought maybe they hibernated. I know of some scientists who took one of the little guys, a flammulated owl, put it in a really cold box and to see if it would go into hibernation. They ended up with a really unhappy cold owl saying, no, we don't hibernate, we fly to Mexico. Again, they're not quite sure where that is. The great horned owls are here year-round. Also, the western screech owls are here year-round. They're eating little mammals, and there are mammals year-round, so they stay on their territories. Yeah, good bird.
And then, so Alexander says fishing birds, cormorants, herons, harder than raptors, or no? Like to care for, maybe?
I don't have many. I don't have much experience with fishing birds, but you have to give them fish, and you have to supplement the vitamins because a dead fish loses vitamin A's or something. Anyway, it's a little more complicated. These guys, I get 50-pound boxes from Rodent Pro, delivered with dry ice. The UPS guy was kind of curious about what I was doing with all of these, so I clued him in on it. They like them thawed out, but they'll take to eating dead things. You've got a nice fresh mouse there, he's just kind of dead. They'll eat that, so that's not a problem. Whereas keeping fish around, and especially really fresh fish, is more difficult. Here. Oh.
Do you see that?
What's the story with the birdseed monolith at the Mercantile? One of I On a Wing and a Prayer is my tiny nonprofit. It's really pretty much just me in support of that. And one of my board members saw these monoliths that kept appearing in the Utah desert and different things. Thought Corrales should have a monolith, and then decided that instead of aluminum or something shiny, it should be covered with suet, basically birdseed and peanut butter, and so she did I don't know how many pounds of birdseed, and made this monolith.
Okay,
and
is it?
Just really cool. Unfortunately, it's not at a place, the location where people were driving by and would see it. She was doing it as a fundraiser. Was not the same place that would attract lots of little suet-eating birds. So it has now been moved into the woods and is being consumed, we presume, still.
Awesome, that's cool.
I've helped two friends who've gone into assisted living and had extensive wardrobes. So the next fundraiser is I have all these cool clothes. I mean, Chico's things, silk shirts, and the tag's still on them. And we're going to do a pop-up sale someplace on Corrales Road, and again to raise funds.
It's not cheap. Those rats aren't cheap, huh?
That's not cheap, exactly. All the donations to On a Wing and a Prayer go directly to bird care. I'm a perpetual, forever volunteer. And it's my house. There's no overhead. They don't chip in. So it all goes directly to, and my food bill's around $800, $900 a month, just to keep everybody going.
Wow. Yeah. Vet bills?
There are a couple of vets around who have taken special training for wildlife. If you just go to vet school, you learn about domestic animals because the wildlife doesn't pay any bills. But there are a couple of vets who will volunteer their things. By now, I've been at it so long, I really only need them for x-rays or surgery, occasionally for a diagnosis. But by now, I know the diseases that are in the wild population and have the medications, so I don't take that many to the vets. And, God bless them for helping, because there's no way we could pay for that kind of thing.
So if people want to donate, they can find you on Facebook.
Yes.
Where you'll maybe post your pop-up event.
Yes, on a Wing and a Prayer is on Facebook. Even if you don't do Facebook regularly, you can go and look at it. United Way knows about us. You can donate through them. Amazon Smile. And lots of people are doing things with Amazon these days. If you order things through Amazon Smile, a half of 1 cent of each dollar goes to the nonprofit of your choice. So that is certainly available. Or you can go directly to rodentpro.com and as a nonprofit and a good customer, they actually take donations, which then are going only to the Rodent Pro bill. And bring me any kind of, I take from orphan hummingbirds, which are really, little orphan hummingbirds they have a very special diet and they need special care. But once you know that, I've raised a bunch of them. Go from those up to the biggest hawks. I've had some ferruginous hawks, which are like red tail on steroids. They're huge. Little old lady doesn't do eagles. My permits allow me to take an eagle and stabilize it, but I can't handle an eagle by myself. That's a dangerous and stupid thing to do. There are, Alexander's asking, the Zia Pueblo. They will take an unreleasable eagle, which they then keep in their flock, and feathers that are molted can be distributed to Indians for religious purposes. But they don't really do rehabilitation. There's really just one person in New Mexico who has the facilities to rehabilitate eagles. In El Rito, of all places. It's called the Santa Fe Raptor Center. But she couldn't afford the land prices in Santa Fe, moved to El Rito, and it's still called the Santa Fe Raptor Center. It's just way up there. And she has a 100-foot flight. My biggest flight is 40 feet, 40 by 10 by 10. So that can give good exercise to a red-tailed hawk who has healed whatever was wrong and then needs to get back into shape again, into condition before it's released. So we put him in the 40-foot flight and then chase him up and down so that he gets the exercise.
Nice. Well, we're getting up to the hours. So if anyone has final questions or you have anything you want to add in before we...
Let's see, keep your cats inside, put the baby bird back. Those are the biggies. Don't poison rats.
Right, and Robert asks, are there positive action we can do to aid birds through our drought?
Oh, absolutely. Keep water out for them. Very often there's enough food around and they need water. And you'll bring the birds in where you can see them. That's why we feed birds, so that we can see them. It's not because they need the food. But by doing that, you bring them in. And put out saucers of water. And some of them up higher off the ground for the birds that feel comfortable there. Some that are right down on the ground. What does a good water source for a raptor look like? Raptors don't drink very much. They will bathe and they will occasionally drink, but basically they get all of their fluids through their food. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if you find a bird and it needs help, you can find me on Facebook, On a Wing and a Prayer. I'm listed in all the national listings of rehabilitators. And I'll take care of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I'm going to applaud you. And thank you to the owls for being
I was impressed. I was afraid this was going to be really embarrassing. Yesterday, the barn owl kept going, I can't stay on your glove, and kept just diving off. And he'd hang upside down with his feet balled up. So you get underneath him and you sort of put him back up and prop him up, and you get him balanced and everything's good. Take your hand away and he'd go, oh, and do that again. So I was anticipating being on YouTube clips that were very embarrassing. So thank you, bird, for doing that. This one's really solid. This is a good old bird. He can take it all. And maybe next time down the road, the little western screech owl will be able to too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Well, thank you, everyone. We'll be here next week on Zoom. Same link if you want to join us to talk about water resources in the Middle Rio Grande with a hydrologist. So that'll be fun.
Look forward to it. Okay.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good day to you all. Yeah. Okay, you ready to go back in your box? Yeah, you can do that.